Welcome to part 2 of our video series for beginners. In this second video, which is going to be rather a brief video, we quickly want to talk about which Spektrum radios we have chosen and why. Let me show you quickly on a sheet a list of the current radios that are available from Spektrum. As you can see here, the most basic radios that they used to have, particularly with the ready-to-fly version, so if you buy a whole package and the plane comes with a transmitter, it comes with a battery, and it comes with a simple charger, was the DXE. This has now been replaced by the DXS, and personally, we certainly would not recommend that you buy any of those just as a single purchase. If it comes with your first plane, if you're not sure about the hobby, I think it's an absolutely brilliant idea to buy one of the RTF sets, a ready-to-fly set, and if it's a new one, if it's a new model, it will come with the DXS. If it's an older quote-unquote model, it will still come with the DXE. But again, don't buy those just as a standalone transmitter. Eventually, you're going to grow very fast out of it. The next two transmitters that Spektrum still has on offer is the DX6E and the DX8E. That's a 6-channel and an 8-channel controller transmitter. We would not recommend them. These are currently the cheapest 6 and 8 channel transmitters that Spektrum has. And why is it that we don't recommend them? Because they don't have voice. And of course the DXE and the DXS also don't have voice. What does that mean, they don't have voice? They have all kinds of beeping and alarms, beep here, beep there, and you never really know what it means because a beep is just a beep, and while you're flying you're actually looking at the plane and shouldn't take your eyes off the plane at any moment. And other radios, a little bit more sophisticated, a little bit more expensive, but really just a little bit, they have voice. They have all kinds of talking. So there's a voice that actually will talk to you and tell you how much time there is left, in which mode you are flying, etc., etc. It gives you all kinds of information. You can put the volume up and down. And this is what we really recommend. So at this stage, they still have the DX6, the DX8, and the DX9. They are going to be phased out. If you want a DX, one of the older transmitters, but excellent transmitters, there's still a 6-channel, an 8-channel, and a 9-channel out there. Honestly, of all our 13 or so planes that we have, all of them can be easily flown with a 6-channel transmitter. I'll show you ours in a moment. There's one that really needs an 8-channel transmitter. And the more sophisticated the planes get, then it's better to have probably an 8-channel transmitter. Do you need a 9 or 10-channel transmitter? Probably not, probably never, but we should never say never. So maybe one day, but do not feel pressured right away to buy something above 8 channels. So in the end, we were very happy. Our first transmitter is a DX6, I'm going to show you, and the second one is a DX8. And we are very happy and haven't regretted anything. Recently, so the DX6 and 8 and 9 will be discontinued. Only the 6E and this 8E will be continued by Horizon for a while as a beginner, as an entry-level transmitter. They have the next level transmitters, the NX 6, 8 and 10. And certainly if you're just getting into the hobby, they might really be the NX6 or the NX8 might be a good investment. Now, some people are saying since they're new, there may be some problems with them in the beginning, so just wait a little bit, wait a few months until Spektrum has realized all the problems, has done an update, and maybe only then start buying an NX6 or NX8. We can't speak to that. We don't have one. If we would have just started the hobby a few months ago, probably we would have bought an NX6 and an NX8 rather than a DX6 or 8. But yeah, this is the future. The NX, the future. Down here, we still have listed the IX12 and the IX20. They're very sophisticated, they're very expensive. A friend of ours has an IX12. We can't say much about it, but they're the most sophisticated ones, the most expensive ones. And for a beginner, seriously, we can't tell you much about it, and you probably have no use for it in the beginning anyhow. So if you down the road in a few years think you need something like an IX12 or 20, and if they still exist, then it's early enough to think about it in some time to come. So without any further ado, here is our DX6, and you can see it's actually packaged in some kind of little, it's like a tabletop. Most of the radios are held with something like this, like a lanyard just around your neck. Now, we have found this to be a little bit of a nuisance. For my son, certainly, having a radio dangle around his neck, and he's only 7 years old, not a good option. And I have found the same. I always felt, particularly when you bend down to pick up a plane or you're getting the plane ready, then your transmitter, which is quite heavy, is dangling down and it can damage your plane. And it's also really not so comfortable just to have that thing around your neck. And there are many brands. This is a European one. This is a German, Altec, a really good company. And they make for all kinds of radios, not just for the Spektrum radios, these little tabletops. There's even a rubber plate here on both sides. And they're really comfortable. And as you can see, it has 2 hooks, because you actually have this kind of system, a much more sophisticated system, much nicer all over your shoulders, around your body. You can wear it over a thick jacket in the winter. You can wear it, it's like a harness, right? And you can wear it in the summer just over your t-shirt, and you can hook and unhook your radio very, very, very easily. And so I have one, and my son has another one, and like we said, they are super, and they're very solid. So they actually really, you can get your radio at the correct height. Your hands are always free. I've actually seen some people not using a lanyard and not using a harness. They just really virtually, literally, they're holding the remote control in their hands and then trying to control the plane, which I think, well, okay, for some people this seems to be working. I think that's stupid, because really you should have your hands, your fingers should be free, so you can really reach all of the switches. So that's why we can, if you're in Switzerland, if you're in Germany or Austria, Altec is brilliant. You have to put these together. They come as a kit. It's not so easy to actually put together, but once it's together, it's brilliant. And they last forever, and they make them for all kinds of remote controls. Be very careful, buy the correct one, because they're made to fit. And they have other brands, and I'm sure in the US there's all kinds of brands that make these. Buy one. It's a really good investment. So the DX6, basically, we're not going to talk in detail in this video about every single switch. But most planes are like 4-channel, and you have the gas. So this is the speed, okay, from 0 going up to 100. You have the ailerons, which make the plane go roll. You have the elevator, which makes the plane nose down or up. And where you have the throttle, the speed, you also have the rudder. So that makes the plane go left or right. Okay. And these are basically the 4 channels. Now, all the other switches can have purposes, but most of them are not really used for all models. So you have 2 or 3 switches, which one of them may be the switch which can turn your plane from a safe mode into an experienced mode. Another switch is very important. We always assign one switch to a throttle cut or throttle hold. That means that with one switch you can always make sure that the prop is not moving anymore. I mentioned this in the introduction video, and I say it again today. Safety first. Safety is really important. Props can really damage your fingers, can damage your face, can damage your body. So be very careful. And if you're doing this hobby with kids, like I am, be very aware when your kid is approaching a plane and how he or she is approaching the plane. It can be really dangerous. So we have the DX6. We are extremely happy. These the basic 4 channels. Plenty. This DX6, this 6-channel remote control. We never had any problems, all kinds of stories. Yes, there probably are. For every remote control, there can be a problem. This is not a real equipment of an Airbus or something. And even there, you can have technical, in Boeing planes, you can have technical problems or difficulties. But mostly when a plane goes down or does something strange, it's the pilot's mistake. Okay, 99%, yes, or even your mistake by not checking if something is wrong, or even some screws are not tight on the plane. That's also your mistake. And always, most people tend to say, oh, must be a software problem, must be inside the radio, so inside the plane, in the electronics. Very unlikely. Possible, but very unlikely. Our second radio is a DX8. It looks completely the same. It has one more knob. And it has, some of these switches are 3-position instead of 2-position switches. Again, at the moment, you don't need to understand that. But what we're saying, and again, you can see it has one of those little add-ons to make it much more stable and easy to carry. So this one is mostly the one I actually given to my son. And I mentioned in the introduction video that without a cable, without a wire, it's very easy. So if you want to connect the 2 radios, so you can fly one plane, I can start a plane, I can take off, go into the air, and with the switch of with one switch, just moving one switch, my son has control. He doesn't have control over everything, not the switches, but he can go left, right, up, down, faster, slower. That's what he can control. And it is a brilliant way, body boxing is a brilliant way of learning how to fly. And like we said, we love the safe technology of Horizon, which is also something I think that we will need to discuss in a separate video of what that really means. But so the DX6 and the DX8, we can highly recommend them. We had 0 problems whatsoever. And we love those little tables. Altec is the company here in Germany, well, next door in Germany, and we certainly love them. We absolutely recommend those harnesses. Clearly over some kind of lanyard or nothing, or just holding it in your hands. So that very briefly this was a very brief covering our choices of radios. Now, what I didn't make clear in the introduction video, and I just want to say this again about Horizon Hobby planes. So when we buy planes, once we started, we had an RTF model. So the first model was ready to fly and came with everything, and came with a simple remote control, and it came with one simple charger, and it came with one battery. That's okay to start with. Don't do this again and again and again. Don't just buy planes that come as an RTF model. Don't. Do this the first time, and once you realize this is great, maybe what you should do, continue to buy models, obviously, that fit the beginner pilot, and also the ones that use the same batteries. So this is something we will talk about more when we look at chargers and batteries and what kind of LiPo batteries there are. But very briefly, I mentioned RTF, BNF, and PNP earlier, and I never finished explaining BNF and PNP. So ready to fly, that's your first plane. Good choice if you buy one that has that. Also, a ready to fly plane comes with 3 different modes. So you have one switch, and if it is on a 0 position, it's in a beginner mode. And what it means is it is programmed that it cannot really rotate completely around its own axis, and it cannot really go into a loop, and you cannot really completely crash it into the ground, because it eventually will stop and go back to level. So the same is true for left and right. So it's really limited. The roll and the pitch is limited, and that's a brilliant thing. And in the RTF model, you actually have a beginner mode, an intermediate mode, which gives you a little bit more movement, but still not the complete movement. And the third level is advanced level, and that's only AS3X working. These are the gyros working, trying to fight the wind, but you're in complete control of the plane. And when you start to roll, it continues to roll. It's not going to go back to banking. So you really need to know that. Once you have one RTF model, you don't need to continue to buy them. What we do is we buy BNF, bind and fly. So in other words, it doesn't come anymore with a battery, and it doesn't come with a charger. Why? Because you already have that stuff. So, but everything else is ready, and it has a receiver, and it's all programmed for you. And there are also downloads on the Spektrum website. When you have a radio, you should really register it. Go register your radio on the Spektrum website. And then you can also get all the firmware updates, which you should really do, which is really important. And you do this with an SD card, and there is a little slot here at the bottom, and you feed it through the SD card. You upgrade the software, the firmware. And so what we do is we just buy BNF planes, and in other words, we download. Spektrum has in the NX transmitters, they are already in the transmitter installed in the new series, in the next series. In the DX1, you always have to go to the website, and you have to download them on the SD card, and you put the SD card into your transmitter, and you have the model actually preloaded, everything. You can also do this by hand if you want to, but for a beginner, this is really cool. That so every single plane is actually already, you can have it on an SD card, and the settings are perfect, at least for a beginner. Maybe later you want to change them, and you can change those settings. So bind and fly means we get the plane out of the package. There's very little that we need to put together, a little bit. And we put the battery, one of our batteries inside, and the transmitter has already everything ready to go. And then you bind it, which we can show you in another video how to bind a plane. And there you go. That's it. So basically we're buying BNF, bind and fly models. PNP is for people who like the plane, who like most of the technology that Horizon puts in it, but they have their own receiver. So they're probably not flying with a Spektrum radio. They're probably not flying, they have another brand, but for whatever reason. To me, it's a little bit weird, because there's lots of people also who don't like Horizon, who buy other companies and then put their own transmitter in it from another company. To me, it's sometimes a little bit odd why people would do that, the PNP one. I don't quite understand it for Horizon Hobby, because Horizon Hobby does such a good job in providing the AS3X gyro technology, the safe technology with the limiting pitch and limiting angles. So it really helps beginners not to crash the plane. But yes, so just that you know, PNP means plug and play. So in other words, you get the same plane as in the BNF version, but there's no receiver. You have to understand more. You have to install your own receiver, and that is something you don't want to do if you're a beginner. Okay, remember that. So I hope this was a little bit informative. Again, DX6, DX8, great. They're gonna phase them out, unfortunately, but the NX6 and the NX8 would be then the new good choices. You should also know that the NX6 is actually a 7-channel transmitter. It actually has a specific channel to assign safe. When you buy a BNF plane, it doesn't have automatically those 3 modes I explained earlier. So the beginner, intermediate, and experienced, it doesn't have that. Every BNF model that comes now with A3X and safe, you can fly it either in safe or out of safe. And then it's in experienced mode. but you still have AS3X, you still have the gyros to stabilize your plane. A lot of people make that mistake, or they only bought an RTF plane, a ready-to-fly plane, the Aeroscat or the Carbon Cup S2 or the Apprentice STS, and they have those 3 modes. They have safe, intermediate, and advanced or experienced. And then they take maybe the same transmitter that came with the plane, and they take another plane, a BNF plane, and they bind it, and they still think they have those 3. And that's wrong. That's a big misconception, okay? So what you then have is you only have safe, or safe is off, and you have AS3X, okay? So obviously safe and AS3X is on, and safe it's both, or it's just AS3X. And the technical stuff, I don't want to make it too complicated, but by the way, all of these BNF planes from Horizon Hobby, if they have safe select, when you bind your plane, when you connect your plane to your radio, there's even there a procedure which gives you a choice in the way you bind it. And we can show this to you once, but there's also plenty of videos on YouTube already explaining that, so that you can bind your plane without safe, and you can change that later and bind it again. I don't understand why you wouldn't want to do it, because, and here is a very important piece of advice. So first of all, don't let anybody pressure you. If you're starting to fly, and if you're using Horizon Hobby planes, and if you're using Spektrum radios and safe technology, smart technology, use it. Don't let anybody pressure you out of it. It's your money, it's your planes. Don't crash them just because people may put pressure on you, and maybe you just need your own time to get better and come slowly out of safe. Maybe I think we still do every takeoff and every landing in safe, and depending on the model, some of them we hardly take out. We have a F-15 jet, and that one I have not taken for a second out of safe yet. We're just learning to fly with it, but it's great, and we're flying a jet. And there are other planes, like for example the Crescendo Evolution. If you have a big motor glider with 1.50 meter wingspan and it's high up in the air, that flies by itself. So that's a plane you can take very early on out of safe and fly just with the gyros, with the AS3X. So, but don't let people pressure you, yeah? And again, so some of these models, some of these planes come with 3 modes, but there are very few. And the intermediate one is actually I find it pretty cool. It's a really first step away from safe. But just a few planes have that. And it's kind of this intermediate thing where you suddenly realize, because suddenly every little stick movement gets a really strong reaction from the plane. And when you're in safe, you really crank the stick to the left and to the right, and you keep it there to make the plane actually turn. So be aware, do not get totally addicted by safe, but on the other hand side, don't get pressurized by getting out of it too early, because you're enjoying it, and you're actually flying a plane, and you're nicely taking off. If there's any bystanders on the field, they don't have any clue anyhow how the technology is helping you fly. So do what is right for you. If it's safe, what you're doing for you and for anybody else on the field and standing by and where you're flying over, if it's fun, if you're enjoying it, it is right. Okay? So these are just a few words about the different radios that are out there from Spektrum. If you still have a chance to buy a DX6 or 8 or 9, do it. Then again, buy an NX6 or NX8. The NX6, like I said, is actually a 7-channel transmitter, because they have one specifically assigned for safe select. So that switch does not interfere with your other 6 channels. So you still have 6 channels. So by the way, if you're asking, so I've just shown you what the 4 main channels are. Yeah, going up and down, going left and right, sideways, rudder, or rolling, aileron, yeah, rolling, and the throttle up or down. So you have 4 channels. So what in the world would you need a 5th or a 6th channel for? Well, if your plane gets a little bit more sophisticated, then it has probably retractable wheels. So the wheels come up, and that's a channel. Or it has flaps. It can brake. Or it's like when you take off, it has takeoff flaps, and when you land, it has landing flaps, which actually make things a little bit more complicated, but a little bit more fun. So if you have flaps and you have retracts, you have 6 channels, okay? And so that might be a problem. We have an Air Cobra, a P39, and it has retracts and it has flaps, so it has 6 channels. So if we want to use safe select, we actually have to combine it either with the retracts going up or down or with the flaps going up or down. That's kind of stupid. If you have an NX6, you have an additional 7th channel for safe select, so you can just go in and out of safe. So here's a sentence I never finished. Even if you're an intermediate pilot or an experienced pilot, in my opinion, I totally agree with Jason Merkel from eFlight, it would be stupid not to have one switch that you can go in and out of safe, so safe select, because you can save your plane. There's plenty of pilots who made the mistake of looking into the sun. You never fly through the sun, you never fly above your head, things like that. You lose orientation. You make a mistake, you're too close to the ground is the limit, the ground is your enemy, don't get too close. If you try anything, go higher up, at least 2 mistakes high, so you can make a mistake and still save the plane. So you make a mistake and it's like a panic button that you just throw a switch and you're immediately back in safe. What's wrong with that? So if you, for the next 10 years, only fly in safe, so maybe then that's wrong. But if you're a beginner and you're learning, and even if you're an advanced pilot and you're not taking off in safe and you're not landing in safe, but just to have that safe switch, I think it's brilliant. It's brilliant technology. It takes your plane up, it takes your plane level a little bit up, it goes climbs, it goes straight, even if it was on the back first, as long as it still has space, as long as there's no tree in front of it, as long as you're not too close to the ground, and it cannot auto-correct, it cannot self-correct. If you hit that safe switch, it goes straight back into a very safe, into a good flight position. And the moment, if you're flying into the sun, 1 or 2 seconds later, you can see it again. You can take control of it again, you can correct your flying route, and you can get out of safe again. So AS3X is brilliant because it stabilizes your flying, it fights the wind, it does a brilliant job. I don't understand why people wouldn't want to use it, and I don't understand why people wouldn't want to use safe. Don't be too proud, okay? It helps you save money, it helps you save your plane, and most of the damage is bad landing. Landings are the most important, important, but the most difficult part of flying. Flying, once you're takeoff is not so difficult to master really, and flying in circles and making figure eights and so on. It just depends. I really enjoy scale flying, so I like actually slow, high wing planes. I love the new Draco that eFlight has brought out. Check it out if you don't know what I'm talking about. Draco 2 meter. I like STOL planes, but you can see also in the back there's some other planes behind me, and I certainly don't like any 3D flying. I don't like when a plane doesn't look like the real plane. So when a plane is just hanging on a propeller in the air, and it's just like, what? So what's that? Then it becomes to me a toy. When I see a plane fly and I look at it from a few meters or 100 meters distance, 50 meters distance, and it looks like the real plane, I can't really tell the difference. Oh my God, is this a real Warbird? Is this a real F-15? Is this a real Trojan? And also the style, how it flies, then I'm really happy. So I think that the next video that we're going to do is talking about microplanes, UMX planes that Horizon Hobby has. They're really cool, but there are certain things to consider. We're going to talk more about chargers, batteries. We're going to talk about what 1S, 2S, 3S, 4S batteries mean, what that is all about. If you like our videos, please subscribe, and of course feel free to answer questions. And please refrain from commenting in the negative, but if you have some encouragement or some suggestions, by all means, write us a note. Thank you and good night from Switzerland.